I'm just outside of the Shanghai International Circuit here, where they are putting the final touches to the second race of the season. You might hear a bit of work being done in the background because they are getting the track ready for the fans for this Friday. A lot of action with FP1, or the only free practice we're gonna have this weekend, and also qualifying for the sprint. This race might show us a little bit more about what's to come for this season, although George Russell said he already knows. He thinks the McLaren, the sort of advantage they have at the moment, it was something that even Red Bull never had before. And he was asked, okay, so you're talking about 2023 when they won nearly all races, and he said, yes, this is what I mean. I think they have an advantage that Max never had in that Red Bull. That was received with different ways by other drivers. So Max himself was asked, and he said, I cannot compare because I haven't driven that McLaren car. In a way, I felt like he was saying, I can only know if I drive it to see how fast this machine can go. Then Charles Leclerc said, oh, I don't really think so, because I think we, as for Ferrari, we didn't show what we could show. We do expect Ferrari to be in that gap between McLaren and the second best, whether it's Red Bull, whether it's Mercedes. And Ferrari, they do expect that they can unlock a little bit more out of the car. Let's remember that they have a new suspension, the front suspension this year, and they still don't think that they were able to set up the car accordingly just to extract the maximum that they can with this new package. So they're still in a learning process, and we're gonna see more to come from Ferrari. But at the same time, after that first race in Australia, they also don't know where they stand. They also think, okay, there is potential, but we don't know how long it will take until we can unlock everything we can. So Charles Leclerc thinks the advantage is not as big because he thinks Ferrari are going to be there, maybe not going to be close enough to fight for wins, but when they get things right, the gap won't be as big. But the best one was Oscar Piastri. So this was asked to Oscar. So George said that your advantage is bigger than Red Bull, and his face, Oscar doesn't need to say any words, right? He just did like for a while, and then he said, oh, George has been saying some very interesting, funny things lately. It's still on McLaren. Oscar said something interesting about the form of the car, and maybe something that we might see here that we didn't see in Australia. This track has always been a front limited track, and always the limitation of the tire is graining. And especially there's a new surface here, and drivers don't seem to know too much about the new surface, how grippy it's going to be. So they expect to have a lot of graining. In the past, the McLaren car has suffered more than others with front graining. So if that's still the case, if they couldn't get rid of this characteristic, then they might suffer a little bit more here. Don't know if it's enough to make them not be the winners, but still we might see a McLaren a little bit different than what we've seen in Australia. Another subject of this Thursday here in Shanghai were the V10s, the V10s making a comeback. This is a subject that he started with Mohammed Ben Sulayem talking about it, and for me it felt like just MBS trying to get some positive news around him for once. But then Stefano Domenicali said, oh, I would support that, I would like that as well. And this idea of bringing back the V10s with a sustainable fuel has been gaining traction in the paddock. And there were two important voices today saying that yes, we would like that. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. By the way, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen agreed on something for once. They want the V10s back. Hamilton said, let's bring the V10s back, and he was remembering the first time he's ever seen a Formula One car, that his rib cage was pumping with Michael Schumacher just passing by in front of him in Spa. He was bringing back those memories, and he said, okay, we want it back, but we want it back if sustainability is still something that we can achieve. And Max Verstappen even said that, oh, if we have the V10s back, I might even hang around here for longer, because it's going to be much more interesting than the engines we have today. And also today we had the sad news of the passing of Eddie Jordan. Eddie, who founded the Jordan team, a mid-table team that was able to win races and to do important things, big things. Of course, the first team that Michael Schumacher raced for, and Eddie Jordan being such a character, such an important personality, especially in the 90s, but he hung around in the sport, and he was always making the remarks that only Eddie could make, and funny and witty, and very often he was right. I'm just remembering something he said about Max Verstappen 10 years ago, when people were saying, oh, no, he crashes too much, maybe he's not that good, and Eddie will say, no, I'm really impressed with this guy is going to be the great. Just one of the remarks that Eddie Jordan made that confirmed himself throughout the years. So a great loss for the sport. Of course, he was fighting cancer, very aggressive form of prostate cancer, and he's leaving us a bit early at 76 years of age. I think Formula One are going to pay tribute to Eddie, definitely this weekend. A weekend that could be quite interesting with the sprint, the rookies having this whole different experience of racing in this track, the track that none of them has ever raced before, doing a sprint. It was interesting that Kimi Antonelli was saying that he found that the first weekend in Formula One was quite intense, was much more intense than what he was expecting. Everybody was pushing since FP1, and he felt the need to push as well, and he was really worried before he went to the race. Ended up doing a very good race, but he felt that maybe for this weekend, because they're used to having the sprint format and only one free practice, maybe it's going to be good for the rookies. Let's see what happens, and I come back throughout the rest of the weekend to tell the story for all of you.